No! Who let this filthy street rat onto my field? Look at you, dirty shoes, dirty clothes, dirty skin. You smell like the gutter you crawled out of. This is a place for champions, boy, not charity cases from the project. You think because they let you through the gate, you belong here? You never will. Your kind never does.
The boy didn't flinch. 12 years old, a cracked glove on his hand. He looked up at the billionaire and said, barely above a whisper, I'll win $100 million in 3 pitches. You won't touch one. Sullivan's laughter shook the bleachers. 6 weeks later, that laughter died. What did this boy know that a World Series champion didn't? 6 weeks before that moment, on the south side of Chicago, summer pressed down on the neighborhood like a hot hand on a wound. Fire hydrants hissing open for kids who couldn't afford pools. Bass rattling from a passing cutlass with a cracked taillight. Chain link fences rusted at the base, bent where someone had climbed over too many times. On the brick wall of a shuttered grocery store, someone had painted a mural of a black man in a baseball uniform mid-pitch. The paint was peeling. Nobody remembered who it was supposed to be. 3 miles east across the expressway, the glass towers of downtown caught the morning sun and threw it back like a dare. Wesley Irving was 12 years old, and he had never crossed that expressway. Every morning at 6, he sat on a milk crate outside Earl Dawson's batting cage, a rusted wreck wedged between a laundromat and the dead grocery store. Half-collapsed roof, cracked concrete floor, one flickering bulb. A hand-painted sign read, Dawson's Cage, open when I'm here. Earl Dawson was 68, built like a fire hydrant left out in the weather for 40 years. He came out carrying a bucket of baseballs so scuffed the stitching had gone gray, hung targets from the cage ceiling, a tin can, a tennis ball on a string, a cardboard circle no bigger than a fist, and nodded once. Wesley was oiling a glove, slowly like a prayer. The leather had turned nearly black, cracked in 3 places, restitched with a fishing line. 2 letters burned into the thumb, J.I. That glove never left his hand. Wesley threw. The tin can exploded off its wire like a gunshot. The tennis ball snapped off its string. The cardboard punched clean through. 3 throws, 3 kills. Kids walking past stopped at the fence. One whispered, "That ain't normal." Earl scribbled in a small notebook. Dates, velocities, accuracy percentages, grip notes. 4 years of data. Not a diary. A scouting grade development record more detailed than most pro organizations keep for top draft picks. At 6:45, Nina Irving appeared in hospital scrubs. Dark circles so deep they looked like bruises. Breakfast in a brown paper bag. She watched Wesley throw 5 pitches. Every one hit its target with a crack that didn't belong to a child's arm. Her eyes glistened. Pride and fear and a memory buried so deep it pressed against her ribs. She handed the bag through the fence, turned to Earl and said quietly, "Don't let him end up like his father." She left. Double shift, same as yesterday. That night, Earl sat alone in his office, a closet with a desk and a locked drawer. He opened it. Inside, a faded newspaper clipping. James Irving, the arm that could have changed everything. A photograph. A young black man in a professional uniform, mid-pitch. The same glove, the same initials. Earl whispered into the dark, "Not yet." 3 miles east, a different world was breathing. The Lakeshore Lions Youth Baseball Academy. 30,000 square feet of polished hardwood, indoor batting tunnels, pitching labs with biomechanical sensors. Annual registration, $5,000. Parking lot full of Escalades and Range Rovers. The trophy case stretched a hallway long, lit from behind like a museum. At the center of it all, Garrett Sullivan. In his office, walnut desk, World Series trophy photo framed behind him, he talked on the phone about brand alignment, optics, the right image. He said standards 3 times in 2 minutes. He never said talent once. 3-time All-Star, World Series MVP, career .310 hitter. He retired at 38, built a business empire, and came back to youth baseball because he needed to be needed. He ran the Lions with total control and absolute certainty that excellence was something you were born into, not something that wandered in off the street. His son Bryce, 13, practiced alone. Good mechanics, decent arm. Every pitch filmed, every session reviewed by a $200 an hour private coach. Bryce was good, not great. But he'd never needed to be great. Never thrown a rock at a chalk circle because he couldn't afford a ball. Never eaten breakfast from a paper bag on a milk crate at 6 a.m. because that was the only time his mother could see him. Bryce had everything Wesley didn't. Wesley had something Bryce would never understand. But that part comes later. Because right now, a single flyer taped to the laundromat window next to Earl's cage was about to set fire to both worlds. What was on that flyer, and why did Earl Dawson's hands shake when he read it? The flyer said, "Future Stars of Chicago, Open Showcase. All youth players are welcome. Lakeshore Lions Stadium, Saturday, 9 a.m. All youth players are welcome." Earl read that line 3 times. He knew what welcome meant in Lakeshore's language. It meant welcome if you look right, dress right, pay right. But the words were printed in black and white doesn't lie the same way people do. He brought the flyer to Wesley the next morning. The boy studied it the way he studied everything. Quiet, still, absorbing. Earl said, "You walk in there, you show them what you've got, and they can't pretend you don't exist. Your daddy never got his fair shot. You will." Wesley folded the flyer into his back pocket. He didn't smile. He nodded once, the same nod Earl gave him before every drill, the language of men who don't waste words. Saturday, Lakeshore Stadium. Wesley arrived alone. He took the bus, 45 minutes, 2 transfers, the smell of diesel and sweat still hanging in the air when he stepped off. He walked through the parking lot, past rows of black Escalades and white Range Rovers that gleamed like they'd never touched a road with potholes. A woman in a tennis skirt unloaded a gear bag bigger than Wesley's entire closet. Their son walked ahead in a pressed uniform with his name embroidered on the chest. Wesley wore a gray t-shirt, dark jeans, and sneakers with holes at the toes. He carried his father's glove and a backpack with a water bottle and a granola bar. Inside, the air changed. Pristine artificial turf glowing under halogen lights, digital scoreboards cycling sponsor logos, the smell of new leather and fresh laundered uniforms. Boys warmed up in matching gear. Parents filmed with cameras that cost more than Nina's monthly rent. Wesley found the registration table. A woman with a clipboard looked at his address, a South Side zip code, and her expression shifted. Not much, just enough. Registration fee is $200. Wesley didn't know. Earl didn't know. Nobody from their side of the expressway knew. He had $14 in his pocket. He stood frozen while families behind him moved forward with credit cards. A boy in line said to his father loud enough, "Is he lost?" Wesley started to speak. "Just let me throw just 3 pitches," when a voice cut across the field like a blade. "What the hell is this?" Garrett Sullivan walked toward the table. He moved like he owned the ground beneath him, because in this building, he did. His eyes found Wesley in 2 seconds, and what happened next didn't bother wearing a mask. Sullivan looked Wesley up and down. Sneakers, jeans, gray t-shirt, the old glove. The way you'd look at something stuck to the bottom of your shoe. "Who let you in here?" Wesley opened his mouth. Sullivan didn't let him speak. "No, seriously, who opened the door and thought this was acceptable?" He turned to the registration woman. "Is this a joke? Do we not have standards anymore? Do we just let anyone wander off the street now?" He stepped closer. Close enough that Wesley had to look up. "Look at you! You look like you slept in a dumpster. You smell like the bus. You're standing in a facility that costs more per square foot than whatever apartment your mama's renting, and you're holding a glove that belongs in a landfill." He flicked his fingers toward the glove. "What is that, your daddy's? Did he teach you to play in some alley between drug deals? The words landed like fists. Every parent within earshot heard them. Some looked away. None spoke up. Wesley's jaw tightened. His hand closed around the glove so hard his knuckles went pale. Sullivan wasn't done. Let me explain something to you, son. This program exists for athletes, real athletes, kids with real training, real coaches, real futures. Not every kid with a ball and a dream gets to walk in here and pretend he belongs. That's not how the world works, especially not for... He paused, smiled, let the silence fill in the word he didn't say. Your situation. Your situation. The two words hung in the air like smoke. Bryce Sullivan and two teammates had stopped warming up to watch. Bryce called out, grinning, "Nice glove, bro. Garage sale or dumpster?" The boys laughed. The sound bounced off the polished walls and came back louder. A security guard appeared at Wesley's side. "Come on, kid, let's go." Wesley didn't move. Not yet. Something was happening inside him, not breaking, igniting. Every insult Sullivan had thrown was fuel, and the fire had just found oxygen. He looked at the security guard's hand on his arm, then looked past him, directly at Sullivan, who was already turning away, already done, already erasing the boy from his mind. Wesley spoke. Not loud, not screaming, worse, calm. The kind of calm that makes powerful men stop walking. "I'll win $100 million in 3 pitches. Sullivan stopped, turned. The field went quiet. Wesley continued, steady as a heartbeat. "Put a bat in your hand, coach. I don't care that you're a World Series champion. 3 pitches. You won't touch one." For 2 seconds, nobody breathed. Then Sullivan laughed. Not a chuckle, a full, explosive, doubled-over roar. He looked at his coaching staff. "Did you hear that? $100 million. 3 pitches." He pointed at Wesley the way you'd point at a dog doing a trick. "The kid doesn't have $100 and he's talking about $100 million. The laughter spread. Coaches, parents, players. 100 people were laughing at a 12-year-old boy in a gray t-shirt who had just made the most ridiculous promise anyone in that building had ever heard. The security guard pulled Wesley toward the exit. Wesley didn't resist, but his face, jaw locked, eyes burning, glove pressed against his chest, was not the face of a boy who had been defeated. It was the face of a boy who had just set a timer on a bomb. High in the bleachers, a man in an expensive but understated jacket lowered his phone. He had filmed the entire thing. He wasn't laughing. His name was Victor Crane, and he was already making a call. Wesley sat on the bus home, forehead against the window, glove pressed to his chest. He didn't cry. He replayed Sullivan's words, every one, and whispered to himself so quiet only the glass could hear, 3 pitches. That night he sat at the kitchen table in an empty apartment, the glove laid flat in front of him, initials J.I. staring up like eyes. He picked up his phone and typed, "Garrett Sullivan MLB career stats." He read everything, and when he was done, he looked at the glove and said to the empty room, "Who are you? Who are you really?" The answer to that question would change his life, but the person who held it was not his mother. It was a 68-year-old man in a crumbling batting cage and a ghost with the same initials on his hand. What did Earl Dawson have locked in that drawer? And what was Victor Crane doing with that phone call? The apartment was quiet when Nina got home. Wesley was sitting at the kitchen table, the glove laid flat between them, initials up, like evidence in a trial. "Mama, whose glove is this?" Nina set her bag down. "Your grandfather's." "No, it wasn't." He turned the glove over, ran his finger along the stitching. Tight, professional, machine grade. "I looked it up. This is custom fitted. These stitches come from a factory that only makes gear for signed players." He looked at her. "Whose glove is this? Really?" Nina sat down. Her hands were shaking. She looked at the initials, J.I., and something behind her eyes collapsed. She told him everything. James Irving, his father, the most dominant left-handed pitcher to come out of Chicago's amateur circuit in a generation, scouted at 19, signed at 20, fastball clocked at 96. the kind of velocity that makes scouts call their bosses from the parking lot. They called him the next great arm. But James was loud. Not arrogant, honest. He saw black players paid less than white players with the same stats. Black coaches passed over for men with half their experience. Scouting reports called white pitchers cerebral and black pitchers athletic. The same code words generation after generation. James spoke about it publicly, named names, cited numbers, made powerful people uncomfortable in rooms where comfort was the only currency. At 22, his contract was quietly terminated. No other team called. James Irving was blacklisted, not on paper, but in the silence between phone calls that never came. Within 2 years, warehouse nights. Within 5, the warehouse had eaten his shoulders, his knees, and the arm that was supposed to change everything. He died at 29. Heart failure, the certificate said. Nina knew better. The system broke his body. The silence broke the rest. Wesley was 3. He remembers nothing except warmth and the smell of leather. Nina whispered, "Your father didn't lose because he wasn't good enough. He lost because he was too good and too honest for a system that punishes both." Wesley sat with the glove, feeling cracked leather and fishing line stitches. This was not a glove. This was an unfinished sentence. The next morning he went to Earl. Earl didn't look surprised. He looked relieved, like a man finally putting down something he'd carried for 15 years. "I was his catcher. 3 seasons. Best arm I ever stood behind. When they cut him, I wrote letters, made calls. Nobody listened." He paused. "When you were 8, throwing rocks behind the laundromat, hitting the same spot every time, I saw him. I saw James." 4 years. Earl had built Wesley in secret. The notebook wasn't sentiment. It was architecture. Every velocity reading, every accuracy drill, every adjustment tracked with the precision of a man who knew exactly what he was constructing. Proof that could not be denied. Then Earl taught him something that made the room go still. "Your father invented a pitch, a changeup, modified grip, unorthodox release. Comes in looking like a fastball, same speed, same line. Then in the last 10 feet it drops. Not drifts, drops, like someone cut the strings." Earl called it the ghost. "You throw this pitch once, and you throw it last. Nobody sees it before it matters, understand?" Wesley nodded. That same week, a town car parked next to the laundromat. Out stepped Victor Crane, tailored jacket, no tie, the quiet confidence of a man who built $1 billion empire from a neighborhood just like this one. "I was at the showcase. I saw what Sullivan did to your boy, and I saw what your boy did back." He looked at Wesley. "You told that man $100 million. 3 pitches. Did you mean it?" "Every word." Crane studied him, not the way Sullivan had, measuring what Wesley lacked, but measuring what he was worth. "Then I'll put up the money. You put up the arm." The alliance was set. The fuse Wesley lit at the showcase now had dynamite attached. Sullivan didn't know that yet. By the time he found out, it would be too late. How do you force a billionaire World Series champion to accept a challenge from a 12-year-old boy he's already forgotten? The answer was simple. You don't force a man like Sullivan. You let his pride do it for you. Crane understood Sullivan the way a locksmith understands a lock, not by studying the metal, but by studying the mechanism. Sullivan's mechanism was ego. 18 years after retirement, every media appearance, every trophy case, every coaching clinic existed to reinforce one belief. I am still the greatest. Threaten that belief publicly, and Sullivan had no choice but to respond, because silence, to a man like him, was surrender. Crane sent the challenge through Sullivan's management team, formal, written. One public exhibition at a major Chicago stadium. Wesley pitches 3 balls to Sullivan. Strikeout. Sullivan pays $100 million. Sullivan connects on even 1. Crane pays $100 million. Live broadcast. Full media. Sullivan's lawyers responded in 4 hours. Mr. Sullivan declines. Crane was counting on it. The refusal was step one. Step two, he leaked the story. Not the proposal, the showcase footage. Someone had filmed Wesley's declaration on their phone. Crane made sure it surfaced. The video hit social media like gasoline on a spark. The headline wrote itself. Southside Kid challenges World Series MVP. I'll win $100 million in 3 pitches. Champion refuses. Refuses. That word did more damage than any pitch could. Within 24 hours, every sports blog, every talk show, every barbershop in Chicago was arguing. Within 48, it was national. The video, Wesley, 12 years old, gray t-shirt, holes in his shoes, staring down a billionaire, was shared 2 million times. The narrative split. One side called Wesley delusional, the other called Sullivan a coward punching down at a child. Underneath it all, the racial dimension burned like a wire nobody could cut. A wealthy white champion refusing to face a poor black boy from the South Side. Crane knew the optics. He'd grown up on those streets. He knew exactly what America sees when a powerful white man tells a black child to know his place. Sullivan's PR team released a statement. Mr. Sullivan has nothing to prove against a minor. But the internet doesn't read statements. It reads images. And the image, Sullivan laughing, pointing, a child dragged out by security, was worth more than any press release. Someone created hashtag 3pitches. It trended for 3 days. Sullivan's name was no longer World Series champion. It was the man afraid of a 12-year-old. On the 4th day, Sullivan called a press conference. He stood behind a podium flanked by trophies and delivered his response with controlled fury. Fine, I'll face this kid and his little sideshow. When it's over, I'll donate the $100 million to charity and teach him a lesson about knowing his place. Knowing his place. The phrase detonated. He meant authority. The world heard something much older and much uglier. Every retweet, every think piece, every dinner table argument for the next 3 weeks circled back to those 3 words. The event was set. 3 weeks out. Broadcast rights sold. Ticket sales crashed the website in 11 minutes. Back on the South Side, inside the crumbling cage, the real work began. Earl had 3 weeks to prepare Wesley for the most important 45 seconds of his life. He trained the boy with a ferocity that bordered on cruelty. Not because Earl was cruel, but because Sullivan was still Garrett Sullivan. 55 years old, but still training 4 days a week. Still had the hand speed and eye coordination that made him a legend. Underestimating him would be suicide. Earl studied Sullivan obsessively. Old MLB footage, charity game clips, the training videos Sullivan posted to intimidate Wesley. Hundreds of at-bats mapped, swing mechanics cataloged. The data pointed to one critical flaw. Sullivan committed early on off-speed pitches. His career strikeout numbers confirmed it. His hands were fast, but his discipline was emotional. When he decided to swing, he swung with everything. He couldn't hold back. Earl built a 3-pitch sequence like an architect builds a bridge. Every piece load-bearing. Pitch 1, fastball. Establish speed in Sullivan's eyes. Force his brain to calibrate. Pitch 2, cutter. Same arm motion, but the ball breaks 3 inches laterally at the last moment. Shift Sullivan's eye level. Plant doubt. Pitch 3, the ghost. Same motion, same release. 9 miles per hour slow.